Good evening, everybody, and welcome to an episode of Pulp Talk. It's your boy, Big Dave Martell, host of The Bog, also editor-in-chief of the Bizarre Archives, Weird Tales of Monsters, Magic, and Machines. This is our first debut episode of this particular program, and this program here, Pulp Talk, we are going to bring guys from the pulp scene, writers, publishers, artists, experts in genres, all that kind of stuff to come on and talk about pulp fiction and all kinds of adjacent topics. You guys are going to absolutely love it. But if you like the Bizarre Archives, you support the Bizarre Archives, make sure to go to thebizarrearchives.com and get yourself a copy of issue 1, issue 2, or a cosmic horror double feature. Those are available right now, and we have a really awesome book that's going to drop any day now. We're working on it. We're kind of running into some obstacles, but that's going to be coming out. Bizarre Archives 3 is on its way, and then Chronicles of Heraldria, Sacred Times Part 1 is coming. So go check out thebizarrearchives.com. Follow us on Twitter and Telegram at the Bizarre Archives. We're all over the place. You can check us out, Facebook, Instagram. I don't really use them things, but Twitter and Telegram is where you can find us. Tonight, I have a very special guest, author, writer, blogger, smart guy, Matthew Pungitore. Mr. Matthew, how you doing, sir?
Thank you very much for that very kind introduction. I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah, so Mr. Matt is a pulp author like yours truly and all the Bizarre gang, and he has a few books out that a lot of folks really enjoy. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten around to reading them. However, the two that I see that get mentioned a lot, and actually one of these got featured on the back of a Kursova issue that I purchased, right?
That's right. I believe there were some advertisements I put in for Fiendlfield and Charles Almers.
Very cool. So yeah, you have the what is it called? The story of Charles Almers and other stories, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you have this Fienden I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it. The
the
Fiendlfeld. Say it for me.
Fiendlfield Castle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a cool name and it's got a really cool art. Who does your cover art, by the way?
Well, so I self-published through a group called Book Baby.
Mm-hmm.
So for Midnight's Eternal Prisoner and Fiendlfield, that was their designers. But then I was very fortunate to get an artist to do the report of Mr. Charles Almers.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see here. I just want to make sure that I'm saying the name correctly. Let's see. Yes, that's cover art by Sean Slowburn.
Yeah, it's beautiful cover art. I'm trying to see on this. I'm using the StreamYard, by the way. I'm not using the OBS, so I'm not sure how to bring it up. I want to show everybody. I'll drop a link in the chat here in a second. But so, Mr. Matt, which one of these books was your first book here?
Let's see if I can remember correctly. I believe that Midnight's Eternal Prisoner was the first one, and then Fiendlfield came after that, and Charles Almers was the last.
And can you give us an overview of your 3 books here?
It's been some time, but I believe that the best way to describe Midnight's Eternal Prisoner is basically just gothic, bizarre, dark fantasy. Just I wanted to create something that was really quick and easy and short because I wanted to do something in a shorter format. I wanted to go for a novelette format because I thought that it would be fun and I don't know. I just wanted to challenge myself with writing something really short like that. Something that wasn't a short story but wasn't really a novella. Fiendlfield Castle, I wanted to go the complete opposite road. I actually wanted to do a novel with elements of Gothic horror, Gothic romance, cosmic horror. I definitely wanted Fiendicfeld Castle to be this story of uh, trying to seek out an identity. And as for the report of Mr. Charles Almers, well, that's really a collection of stories that unfortunately I was not able to get published anywhere, and I
Hmm.
was too attached to them. I didn't want them to just go nowhere and sink into oblivion, so I decided to
Sure.
just put them together. And I believe then I then wrote some other stories that I thought would work with all of them, with all of their themes and fit with them. And after that was all done, I just put that out.
And your final one here, the castle guy.
Uh, are you talking about my Witchhurst Tower story or which one?
The fiend castle.
Oh, the Phoenixfeld Castle. Right. Yeah. So again, that's the novel. This the main character sees this beautiful woman who he uh just is completely obsessed with, and
Mhm.
he has to try to find her, and when he gets the opportunity to try to look for her, he immediately does. And I don't want to give anything more away than that, but like I said, I definitely wanted to continue to write within a certain genre, uh as well as try to do something that was completely true to what I believe is good Gothic fiction. If I succeeded or not, I don't know, but I tried.
So, that implies that you have an opinion on what is good Gothic fiction and what is, bad Gothic fiction. Could you kind of let's talk about what you would say are the elements that go into Gothic fiction?
Well, Gothic fiction is a, it should definitely be about family. Because it's about the past. It's about going back into the past, and there's always an element of inheritance and ancestry and ancestral doom. Uh, so I definitely think that a good Gothic story should be about family. A royal family or marriage, something like that. It should definitely have elements of going back to the past. Um, Certainly taboos, which is where it connects into the decadence, which is where I really like to try to play around. I definitely want, as for right now, I really want to try to explore more along that avenue. I don't think I have yet, but anyway, as for Gothic fiction, I believe that it can go on one hand either materialist, like what I believe Lovecraft was doing. I believe that Lovecraft was going back to a very materialist, raw form of Gothic, and leaving behind the supernatural. Although, it's funny because really what I believe Lovecraft was doing was supernatural, but it wasn't just this like a sentimental magic where things just kind of happen because the plot needs them to happen or because of vague undetermined things. But then again, vague undetermined things do define what Lovecraftian fiction is anyway, which is part of the weirdness. So I believe Gothic fiction exists between weird fiction and uh, chivalric romance, right? So it's also got to have certain connections with the romance genre, not love, but romance as in a sort of sense of adventure, uh, questing, uh, themes connected with chivalry or duty, things that perhaps connect a character to noble lineage. That's just my overall interpretation.
So, when most people when they hear the term Gothic fiction, what kind of brings to mind is dark castles, Victoria era garb, vampires and werewolves and these kinds of adversaries, kinds of supernatural adversaries, or Frankenstein, right? I would classify Frankenstein as a Gothic horror, and they get this feeling or this aesthetic of gloomy, dark, brooding kinds of things. There's a lot of emphasis on agriculture and or not agriculture, architecture and environment and so on and so forth. Do you think that these kinds of elements are important, or do you think this is just kind of people associating?
Oh, absolutely. Architecture is absolutely part of good Gothic fiction. You cannot separate the architecture from the fiction. I believe if the architecture is not going to actually be Gothic or medieval or neo-Gothic, medieval revival, something like that, then it at least has to bring in the same atmosphere.
Mhm.
And that's why feelings of melancholy and claustrophobia and doom are so important to the genre.
So, would you say that because it looks like between your books that Gothic horror or Gothic fiction is sort of like your bread and butter? Would you say that?
I believe that it has been, although I can sort of sense myself in a way slipping out of it, or at least transforming into a different sort of mode. Um,
Hmm.
from what I've been able, as I've been writing it, I wrote these works, and I've been very passionate about Gothic fiction. But now I can see myself, you know, moving away from that genre. It's a very interesting place where I feel I am artistically right now. Um, but See, here's the thing: Gothic fiction is mainly a Protestant fiction. It's deeply connected with feelings of anti-popish, anti-Romish sentiments. Uh, Gothic fiction is always going to have this sort of uh, moral dubiousness from a Protestant perspective, especially a very English perspective, going all the way back to the Castle of Otranto. So I am moving away. I think as I've been writing it, I've slowly been moving more into the weird fiction element, which is probably where the report of Mr. Charles Almers came into it. And now this weirdness is sort of now taking me into other realms. So, as for what readers can expect from me in the future, at least, I definitely see an evolution taking place.
So, what inspired you to get into Gothic fiction in the first place? Because it's not really when we look around kind of the scene today and we see what guys are coming out with. Obviously, in the Bizarre Archives, we have a few Gothic writers. We have Robert C. Booth from across the pond. He does a very Gothic-y, and he's an English guy, so as you said, has his very English flavored Gothic. Very his stories are about effectively a team of investigators that look into the supernatural and stuff like that, fae and fairies and weird entities and demons and stuff like this. And he has a lot of Gothic flavor in there, but um as a whole, Gothic horror isn't really a big one in our I don't know what you want to call like kind of our thing, right? You have like this space of alt pulp, or maybe you could say um I don't know what the word is for it. There's like this specific flavor of kind of pulp authors that have come out. And like a lot of the guys come from the pulp revolution kind of scene. Some of them are from different areas, but among us, there's not a whole lot of Gothic fiction, right? There's much more sword and sorcery. There's much more fantasy. There's much more science fiction, planetary romance. A lot of looks into things like kind of the primordial pulp sci-fi stuff that very much would remind one of a John Carter of Mars kind of thing, or cosmic horror like we do at the Bizarre Archives. So, what inspired you? Like, what writers? Obviously, you're probably going to mention Poe and Mary Shelley and Bram Stoker, but um, what other authors led you into Gothic horror?
Well, there's obviously Horace Walpole, right? Um, yes, Edgar Allan Poe, Vathek, William Beckford, any of the romanticists, Byron, the monk. I have always loved Gothic fiction. It's been so long. It's just been with me for years and years, right? And I started reading. I tried to go to the source of Gothic fiction because I've always been deeply interested in the macabre and the
Mhm.
bizarre and anything spooky. I love a good graveyard. I love stories with a good corpse and some bones, and you know, uh, and so I got connected with it through them. Uh, and the dark romanticists. But my my love for the gothic has always been because I just love spooky things, to be honest, and I love just the feeling of the sublime, which is what the gothic really is so connected to. Its foundation is this feeling of the sublime. It's one of the best ways that I can use to describe it, because I don't know how else to describe the feeling I get like it's almost, you can feel the sublime in a lot of Shakespeare's work too, like in Hamlet, like in Macbeth. When you see the witches for the first time, Hamlet's father's ghost, and I love a good ghost. Um, I just I don't know. I always end up feeling bad for those like supernatural creatures, and I want to end up learning more about them. Like I, you know, I that's why I gravitated so much to those works, is because I loved being in those haunted corridors on those barren moors. Uh, I'm just drawn to the odd and to the bizarre and to the dark that way. And unfortunately, what I realized was that a lot of the gothic fiction was about trying to run away from those elements. A lot of it had to do with, okay, you open the box and a ghost comes out, but then you got to put the ghost back in and you shut the box again and you bury it. It's like, no, I want to talk to the ghost more. You know, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and that's probably why I love Clark Ashton Smith, right? I
yeah.
love I love Clark Ashton Smith's stories because he gives so much life to bones and necromancers and sorcerers. Uh, Sword and sorcery is a very interesting genre. I love it because those characters do get into some really bizarre encounters with magicians and really unsavory sort of necromancers. And yeah, I whenever I was playing like a tabletop game, I would always want to be the necromancer. I gravitate towards role playing games where you can be the vampire, and I want my stories to connect with people who also feel the same way, who have
Mhm.
this love, for these dark and wonderfully romantic beings. I guess that's probably why I really liked uh, the Interview with the Vampire and the Vampire Chronicle series, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, that and I guess that also connects with why I loved the decadent writers, like Baudelaire, because they Baudelaire was not afraid to write about the even darker, the more mad, the more bizarre stuff that like Poe was getting into, but just
Yeah.
in a different way. So yeah, I just really like that mode. I love that atmosphere. Uh, it's there's a lot to go into. There's definitely a lot of writers that I've really I have loved their works. Robert E. Howard, Lovecraft.
Oh man, don't get me started.
Yeah, you know,
Those are my
all the
boys.
the sword and sorcery genre is so connected to the gothic and the weird. Um, I even this is my opinion, but I do believe that there is a sort of whisper threads of decadence, like silk fabric brushing against the genre. Especially with Clark Ashton Smith and his writings. So yeah, as I don't know. That's I don't know how else to describe it. I love spooky things.
Yeah, I would. I agree with a lot of what you're saying there. Me personally, I've always been a fan of darker. I love the not just like dark as in because I'll tell you what a lot. I mean, we could go all in and talk all day about how lousy mainstream stuff is, and I see you tweeting about it, and I agree with a lot. Just the stuff that comes out of the mainstream just doesn't get it. It doesn't have that uncanny vibe. It doesn't have that actually make you feel weird vibe. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? A lot of modern media that gets into spooky stuff, horror and all that. It's jump scares and gore and just like shock value. And to me, it's lazy and it's not. It doesn't have the same kind of feel like you mentioned. Clark Ashton, Clark Ashton Smith, man, he does such a brilliant job of creating these just absolutely just bizarre, fantastical realities, and he's such a beautiful writer too. I
I oh
I
yeah.
I I
And
adore his poetry.
and let me tell you, I'm not gonna knock gore at all. I love a good gory tale. Like I remember growing up and people were trying to knock Predator with Schwarzenegger. I'm like,
No.
no, give me short. I want to see all of the blood drip from all the muscles like possible. I want this whole jungle to just drench with blood and just like I want there to be just screaming and Arnold Schwarzenegger just like blasting hot bullets in the jungle. You know what I mean? Like
Oh yeah.
that is the kind of stuff I love, but you're not going to get that in today's mainstream media because now it's like they want and I love it too, right? Because well, what do they keep saying? They want everything to be edgy, right? They want everything to be dark. Well, where is it? Where
Yeah.
like the only thing that's darkened is the screen because I can barely see what's on the screen. I can
Oh
barely
yeah.
hear what anybody is saying. But nothing is actually really dark. Everything is super censored. Everything today has an agenda. I'm talking about the mainstream stuff, right? You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like where where's the action? Where's the real violence? Where's the sensuality? It's not there. And so I don't when they say, "Oh, we want to make it dark and we want to make it edgy." It's like, "No, like what ends up happening? It's like, "Oh, this story is about like another abusive dad or like uh I don't know, like just the wokest stuff imaginable and it's all milk toast and it's all gray and
Mm.
it's like depressing without any of the enjoyment of like you can enjoy melancholy, you can that sweet bittersweet feeling of good melancholic poetry, but you're not going to get that in the mainstream you know
Yeah. Absolutely. Ancestral Weapon says even the violence is sterile now. You know what? Maybe it's just been a while since I've tuned into mainstream horror. When I say gore, I'm talking movies like Saw and Hostel that
oh
don't
but
even.
I really I have to say I really liked the Saw series.
Did you?
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan. I thought it was the first one when it came out. I enjoyed it because it was first. I'm 34. When it came out, I guess I was like a teenager, so it was like cool when I was a teenager. But as time went on, they just kind of redid the same thing over and over and over again. Or a lot of it is rehashes of like the slasher movies that when they came out in the 70s and the 80s were like they were the bee's knees. But nowadays it's just like overdone. But one thing that they miss, and you mentioned something there about movies that I thought was really great. The only thing that's dark about them is the lighting, right?
Yeah.
How many like impossibly black and gray movies are they going to put out thinking
And
that's
like
going to
if
scare
there's
us?
if there's ever any color, it's always like the same yellow or blue. It's like, like I really noticed that when that new Blade Runner movie came out. I remember saying to myself, okay, so there's definitely something going on with yellow and blue because it's like every time there's like a movie now, it's always like really dark, really you can barely see anything. Then if you can see anything, it's like gray with tones of like a rust orange, and then like maybe there's like another scene and it's like blue, and then it just keeps going back and forth between this like orange and yellow and blue thing. But it's like, where is the real color? Where we had glorious color, we had glorious color in, so like it wasn't even that long ago. We used to have beautiful movies. We really did, and the color
Mhm.
was amazing.
Have you
I don't
seen
know.
the Color Out of Space movie with Nick Cage?
Yes, I saw that movie and I did a review of that movie on I put a article out on the DMR Books blog.
Did you how'd you what I didn't see that one. Did you love it or did you hate it?
I absolutely did not like that movie.
Oh, come on. The monster and the color and the weird sound.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
man.
in my article, I even say that that's basically the only reason why I kept watching that movie was because like I felt like I kept watching it for Nicolas Cage and the monsters, and it was like, okay, like I love Nicolas Cage as an actor. He's like my favorite actor, and like I thought that the evil alpaca uh, abominations were amazing. I wanted to like hug one of them, and I was like, I love it, but then I was like, okay, but I don't seem to like anything else.
The first
I'm literally just watching this for Nicolas Cage now at this point. Like,
I'll concede the first half of the movie was really painful. The first half of the movie is not good. There's there's kind of like story threads that don't go anywhere, and it's just really slow. And it's I don't know. I the first half of the movie is terrible, but the second half of the movie, I don't know, man. I like adored it. I really truly did because it was like we were talking about the colors and the scenes and just the concepts, and it's not as good as the story the Color Out of Space by Lovecraft. It's not the same thing at all. So if folks
I,
haven't read that, go ahead, Matt.
honestly, I'm thinking if with Lovecraft, I don't know, like with the HP Lovecraft historicals, Call of Cthulhu, I feel like Lovecraft should just be done in black and white and silent because Lovecraft stories are not really. I can't see them dripping with color. They feel to me like very morose, very stiff movies. The kinds of the narrators are so black and white. They're so involved in this madness where I can't imagine there being color. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that even makes sense, but
No,
I don't know. It
it
makes
makes
sense to
sense.
me.
It makes sense. I just, it's just I can't. I did see the was that the HP Lovecraft Historical Society or whatever. I did see the Call of Cthulhu silent movie.
I
It's over on
really
YouTube.
liked the Call of Cthulhu silent movie. That was a really faithful adaptation. Um, I mean, the music was really nice. The costumes and sets, everything was really fun to look at. Uh, there were some changes, and I really, didn't really like that. There were some. I don't want to spoil anything, in case anybody wants to see it. But there were some things that were changed. I wasn't really feeling that, but overall, they did a really great job with Call of Cthulhu.
So, now that we're kind of talking about all these different genre directions and everything, you mentioned earlier about how you now feel yourself kind of leaving gothic horror and kind of going into some other different kind of genres or stuff.
Yeah, it's
Tell
it's
tell me about it.
it's been very interesting because I really have felt like I'm on this creative journey. Like I've been hearing this voice, through my art. My writing has shown me things that I'm able to do. And now, like I said, I've gotten to this point where I've kind of said, okay, this is the Gothic, and I've loved it for so long. But now it's like I can, you know what I mean? Like I can feel myself evolving where I don't think I'll ever leave the Gothic. I think the Gothic will always be a part of my works, but
Mhm.
I can definitely feel that now my work is moving more. And into I definitely care more about aesthetics and creating sensations and moods differently than I did before. Whereas before I was really concerned about just creating fear and focusing on horror craft. Whereas now I want to try different things. But I think that the Gothic is so close to my heart that those moods will always be with my art. But I don't know because I just have to follow the journey, you know?
So, where are you headed, though? Are you headed something that's more action based, something in the more sci-fi? Where are you headed?
I don't know.
Uh,
I don't know, honestly. We'll find out together.
Sounds good. So, do you have anything you're working on right now?
Um yes, I'm always writing, but I do not like to talk about writings that I haven't
Sure.
put out there yet. I'm continuing writing blogs for the DMR Books blog. Um Although after April I don't know how often I'll be doing that. I don't know after I do my article for April, I don't know when I'll be able to get back to it because I want to try to focus on um, other writings, work. Uh, I also do volunteering with the Hingham Historical Society. So there's just a lot of things that are changing, and I have to just kind of see where everything is taking me.
So, you mentioned you're part of this historical society, and I know that you're a fan of architecture, and we kind of touched on it with the Gothic, how architecture is so important to the Gothic, but um, I would actually say that architecture and kind of the vibe of architecture is something that eh, when I write, so when I do my sword and sorcery series, the stories of Lucius Lex, I absolutely make sure that the buildings that I'm describing set the tone and make sure they give the feeling of a specific time period so that people feel like they're in that time period, right? So,
Right.
so I think that architecture and a focus on architecture is something that's a little bit overlooked in fiction. Would you agree with that? And what's your opinion on the importance of
Oh
architecture in
yeah,
fiction?
I do agree. I think it is overlooked. Architecture and I mean basically art in general is so important to me. But like when I go to travel, I'm going mainly for the architecture, right? Like I'm seeing the buildings. I go to the cemeteries. I mean, I'm always at a good cemetery. I'm always at a church, um, a cathedral, old historic buildings. I'm there. Museums. I'm there. Architecture is huge for me. So it kills me inside when I see what modernism is doing, right? Because I don't know how to describe, but brutalism and futurism and the Bauhaus movement have just completely destroyed the human spirit. It's not it. I don't believe that that's where our society should be headed. So I feel
Mhm.
like when writing, you know, imagine what that must feel like, right? So when you're writing, I think architecture really comes into it because it comes into everything. When I'm walking around, that's when I'm noticing the architecture, and I do the same thing when I'm reading. The
Mhm.
architecture is so important because it is like a character itself, right?
Mhm. That's interesting. And do you feel that a lot of modern authors kind of overlook architecture a little too much?
Man, I don't know what like when we're talking about modern authors, are we talking like the big traditional published authors, or like who are we talking about?
Yeah, I guess that's an important distinction to make because a lot of the indie publishers, the guys that are in the pulp spheres, we're just like a different breed than the mainstream. Actually, you know what? This is something I wanted to talk to you about because you've got some books out. You're up with in the mix with DMR, which I'm going to ask you about in a little bit. You've been in the scene for a little bit. how would you what for folks that are just kind of coming into the pulp sphere and they're kind of looking into the new indie publishers and indie authors, what would you say is kind of the difference between your mainstream publishers that are coming out of like Tor Books and the what are they called, the Penguin International, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. And
Right.
then guys like DMR and Biz Archives and Kursova and yourself and so on and so forth. What is kind of
Well,
what separates us?
I am very thankful to Sursova. They chose my story to be in the winter 2021 issue. So that's where my Witchhurst Tower story is. Um,
Is that how you say it,
and
Sursova?
yeah, so it's Witchhurst Tower. That's my story. And that appears in the Sursova magazine winter 2021 issue. I don't know if I'm saying Sursova right. It's just that's how I've been saying it.
Yeah, I've just been saying Kursova, so
Yeah.
that's why I'm asking you.
Uh, so no disrespect to Alex or Sursova or anyone them. I I just don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm very sorry. Forgive me. um, but yeah, so that connecting with them allowed me to see things there. Connecting with DMR books, doing the blog has allowed me to see things on that side. Connecting with you at the Biz Archives, and so many others, right? I see a lot of heart coming from you, from DMR, from Sursova, uh, all these writers who are in the pulp rev groups, uh, or anyone who's just in indie, small publishing. There is heart. There is a real. There's honestly, it's kind of like the mystery of steel, right? It's like something you can't describe, but it is definitely here, and it is definitely on our side of things.
Mhm.
I don't know if I would consider myself part of the pulp rev or the superversive movement or anything like that. Um, but I definitely support it because I support that heart, that creativity,
Yeah.
that passion to tell good stories, to create real art, to create something that is uh beautiful. And that is where I'm coming from, because I think that's what's also allowed my art to change, is because I want to focus on beauty. And to get back to what you were saying about architecture, is I think that big publishers, they've forgotten beauty. They
Yeah.
a lot of writers have forgotten about, well, like, to ask, what is it that we think is beautiful? What even is beauty anymore? Because now we're surrounded by propaganda and checklists. You've got to have this and you've got to have that and you can't have this and the editor doesn't like that and this and that. It's
The
too
ugly
much.
is beautiful now, or so they say.
U- Ugly is being worshipped to the point where it's crushing the soul, right? And I want to focus on beauty. I want to focus on creating experiences that are for the sake of art. For me, it's not even about the story. The story isn't what's important to me. It's about making things, that someone might say, "Wow, that looks cool. This looks seductive. This is wow, I can feel this. I don't even know what I'm feeling, but I'm feeling what it is that is here right now."
Hmm.
That's what I want to create. Um,
Oh yeah.
so maybe some people might not really think I'm superversive, or that I'm, my works maybe might be a little too uh nihilistic or dark, or some might say provocative, or I mean, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about what they're saying. I'm just trying to focus on beauty. And for me, beauty isn't just like, oh, what a great romance story. No, like, beauty is also fear, horror, uh the macabre, phantasmagoria, uh but I think there's also a level of eroticism that we've forgotten today too, right? I mean, everything is so prudish, everything is so censored, and I mean, we're living in a world where we're all behind masks now. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
everything is so, you know, and that's symbolic too. There's masks everywhere, right? I mean, everything is a front in the digital age. There's so much information, but no truth. It's
Yeah.
and there's no beauty. So I just want to bring beauty back, or at least, have people reassess what that even means today. Um, I've always been a fan of, the Spawn comics. I love Spawn, and Todd McFarlane's art, the art of Ted Kokonis, Alphonse Mucha, Ivan Albright, Duccio, Leonardo da Vinci, Cindy Syme, Beardsley, Moreau. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. A new renaissance has to be born. It has to be, because otherwise beauty and art and writing are going to die. If they're not already dead, they need to be brought back to life. And I definitely believe that art is is important, not because of any kind of message that can be attributed to it. There's a lot of groups that try to use art for political or reform or this or that sending. I don't believe that art has to reflect anything about reality. Art doesn't have to represent anybody or show what anything is like, except about a human experience connected somehow with the author. As long as the author hides themselves in the art, the author needs to be completely hidden. You know, true art happens when you don't know where the art begins and the artist ends. Uh, Very hard to do. I don't even know if I'm capable of it, but I will sure try. That's for certain.
Yeah. You mentioned about the superversive. For folks that are listening, there's kind of a philosophy that a lot of the folks in the new pulp spheres use, which is the superversive. And the superversive, they've kind of created this dichotomy of subversive versus superversive, whereas the superversive is that which is uplifting and that which is positive and that which is as they would define good, and then subversive are things that are twisted or deconstructive. Or now, obviously, I'm all against what is subversive. I actually don't agree with their like you said. I appreciate that they have this. I support that they've developed this philosophy and they're rejecting the crap. But I do think that when you create this dichotomy, it forces things like tragedy and war and violence into the subversive. And these things I would say are beautiful. War is beauty. This is a primordial truth that war is beautiful. There's things that you would consider to be shocking or violent or whatever. That death can be translated as beautiful, right? So I like I said, I'm not saying it's bad, and I'm not saying the people that ascribe to it should get rid of it. I think that it's a good idea and a good thrust. However, me personally, I believe that there's more to beauty in art than just
Right.
yeah, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, I'm not against deconstruction or anything subversive. I think the problem that a lot of people have with those words, those terms now these days, is that it keeps getting thrown around by creators who seem to hate their own fans. Like we kept hearing it during the whole Star Wars issue, where it was like, "Oh, if you don't like what the mouse is doing with Star Wars, then you don't like art. You don't like subversion. You don't like being challenged." And then it just got into a whole bunch of fan bashing, which I don't even want to get into. But you know what I mean? It's like that's like where people are hearing it. So the only experience people are getting is, it's like they're connecting subversion and deconstruction with just all these stories that are being taken away from them and ruining the things that they love. It seems antagonistic to fans. But good subversion and good deconstruction should not be there just to belittle people, especially the people that you want to have uh, appreciate your art. I believe that subversion and deconstruction can be used beautifully. I do believe that, and so
Can you
You
give
know,
us any? Because I'm having a little bit of trouble wrapping my head around what you're giving me here. Can you give me an
well,
example?
well, let's see if I can try to remember. I believe that I had read um, a decadent story once about Perseus. Uh, the author is escaping me right now, but essentially it was like, imagine if Andromeda had fallen in love with the dragon, and Perseus actually wasn't very sympathetic as a hero. And if that was being done today, you can imagine how it would be done. It would be filled with all this feminist jargon,
Hmm.
and it would be filled with completely anti-West sentiments. But this decadent story was so beautiful and sensual, where it really was like a tragedy. It felt like it honored the Greek tragic myths, where even though there were such radical changes, it was incredibly poignant and beautiful and spectacular. Like it created such visions in my mind. Like I was reading this story, and yet it had felt as if I was watching it. Because the imagery was so powerful. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, so you're saying what you're talking about is like something like maybe the Dark Knight, like the gritty Batman, or
Oh yeah,
something. That's what you mean by something that is deconstructive or subversive, not
yeah. When
necessarily what we associate with what the bad guys are doing.
like no matter what's going to happen, there's always going to be artistic movements or artistic mindsets that are going to want to progress forward and look back on what came before and then reassess it. Right, that is what it is to be modern. And I do believe that a new force of modernity needs to be created, because we are in the modern age. This is us. This is our modern time. We should not let it be hijacked by people who want to define for us what modern is. So if we are going to be modern, and if we are going to deconstruct things, I mean it's inevitable, right? That's just
Yeah.
that I see it as inevitable. Then we're going to have to look at things and deconstruct them in a deconstructive constructive way, to reassess and to reevaluate things without being so divisive, without forgetting the beauty.
Yeah. Um No, I see where you're going with that. Okay, I understand what you're go, and I don't think what you're describing is necessarily what we would consider to be deconstructive or subversive. I guess I see what you're saying there, but I
If I can try to find that story, I would love for you to read it sometime.
sure.
I have a book of like decadent stories, and that one about Perseus, I think I mentioned in a DMR article. So I I will definitely try to send it to you after this is done.
So eh, I think look, I agree with you that there's this problem with kind of what you're describing here is we don't want to be ruled by reactionism is what you're saying. What you're saying is we don't want to push back against the bad guy so hard that we go in a goofy direction, which is it's very possible. I've touched on this quite a few times on my other show on the blog, and what we talk about is that the Mary Sue, the kind of the apple pie, uh, you know, Superman kind of character is not a legitimate hero archetype. That is a failure of the understanding of the hero archetype. That is just a failure of storytelling. A true hero archetype is um somebody like Odysseus or somebody like Beowulf or Conan is a perfect hero archetype, whereas a lot of folks would say that he's an anti-hero, which here's the deal with the hero archetype is the hero because he is above human, right? He is the ubermensch, so he does not the regular societal laws don't apply to him, so a lot of his actions are perceived to us as cruel or impulsive, or sometimes he is just like a promiscuous or this or that. Conan is the primordial archetype of the hero, whereas like Superman or Green Lantern or most of these superhero characters were just just an improper version and a misunderstanding of the hero archetype. And in my opinion, I think that's why comic books are crashing and burning. Isn't so much that it's gotten all gross and paused and subverted, but because that art form was not a true art form. It was kind of a flash in the pan, kind of a fad. What do you think about that take?
Well, I do believe that it's good to have works like that. It's not entirely my bag. I don't need a character to be incredibly heroic and uphold all these amazing traditionalist ideals. Because I'm just focused on beauty and beautiful sensations, and the sublime. Um, I'm more focused on moods and impressions. But there are going to be people who want those things, and they
Yeah.
don't want to be lied to. If you tell them that this is going to be a heroic story, don't then switch the game 3 episodes in, and then suddenly, it's it's completely not.
Don't kill He-Man in the first
You're right.
episode.
you know, um, again, I think what's really gotten under people's skin is the fact that these techniques are being used as a way to belittle people and to demean art. Because that is the movement of today. The artistic movement of today in Hollywood and mainstream writing is like anti-art. You take,
Yeah.
it's like, honestly, I don't know how to describe it except anti-art. Art that simply all it wants to do is create noise and to create pain and to create sensations of loss. You know, it's why I really stopped liking the video games of Hideo Kojima, because I kept getting disappointed when it was like I thought I was getting like James Bond, but then finally I get to the Phantom Pain and it's like, "Oh, sorry, there's no content." The Phantom Pain, like what? Like, you
What
know,
is who is this person you're talking about?
well, Hideo Kojima did the Metal Gear Solid series,
Okay.
and you know, he he made like, these legendary characters that were all, basically like Stallone copies, copies of
Solid Snake.
Rambo, yeah, Solid Snake, uh, all the big action heroes you can think of, put them together, and then, like in Metal Gear Solid 2, then he switched the game up, and it became really this like critique on Western politics, and then with the Phantom Pain, it was like, oh my goodness, so much misdirection during the whole lead up to that game, and then it was like, oh, sorry, the game isn't what you thought it was going to be in the trailers, and it like, again, I don't want to spoil anything for people who want to play those games. I'm not going to spoil that. I'm going to try not to, but that's when I started seeing what was being done with video games like that and Death Stranding and things like that, and the way Konami was handling those kind of games. That's when even I realized, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to stay away from video games from now on, because
Mhm.
it's like anti-art. They're creating things that just seem to be about making people depressed, and not even in a way that's constructive, like, you know I don't know. It's just very disappointing, because when I grew up, I was really a fan of a lot of these, things like different animes and different video games and series and movies, and then, now to be where I am now and just see all these things that I used to like die. I that's why now I'm just like, okay, you know what? I'm going back to 19th century literature. I'm done. I'm going back. I'm starting something new, and it's very rarely that I see a movie that comes out recently that I really like. Um, but I will give credit. There are definitely some modern movies that are good. Definitely some modern games that are good. I think God of War 4 was a pretty decent game. I don't know about the gameplay though, uh, but yeah. Sorry. What
No,
was the
you're good.
question?
You're okay. No, it's all good. Ancestral Weapon says, unfortunately, a lot of midwit rubes think subverting expectations is by default worthy of applause and makes a work somehow above criticism. I would agree with
Right.
that, Ancestral
Yeah,
Weapons.
no,
They,
I agree. It's like there's it's like I was saying, it's like these creators, they want to just sit on their laurels and then create something that's completely disappointing, and they know it's going to be. I mean, they must, right? I don't know. But then when it doesn't work out and people don't like it, and it's not beautiful and it's not inspiring, it's not anything, it's just muck, they say, "Oh, well, it's subversive." Well, what is it beyond subversive? What is it beyond that? But that's like all they can do now. That's all they care about. I don't know. Whatever. I
absolutely. We
I
could go
I
all
try to
day.
wash my hands of that.
Yeah. And I've seen you say this before too. It's like I've gotten to the point that I don't really read anything that came out after 1985 unless it's like one of like the people in the pulp sphere. You
Yeah,
know?
no, yeah. I'm definitely not one of those people who's like, don't read anything that comes before the 19th century or anything. No, like
Yeah.
obviously,
No, of course.
obviously there are modern authors who are writing great stuff. There are. They're just, like Sursova, Biz Archives, DMR, independent people, small people. That's where it is right now. You know,
Yeah. Absolutely.
uh, it's not over. The fight is still there. There are still good writings being made. There's a lot of great art and great music being made, but you just got to look for it. It is there.
We're just getting started. It's like time to strike now. It's time. It's like I feel so there's so much energy in this and there's so much passion. And there's so many great, just really brilliant minds coming together doing it. And we only got a few minutes left, Mr. Matt. But I wanted to ask you about DMR because um, you do some articles over there, and I really love DMR.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have
DMR is great.
I have a bunch of their books. I have Swords of Steel 1 and 2. I have what's that? The Eye of Sonu by Skylar Hernstrom. That guy's great. I love that guy.
Yeah.
They just got so many, and their art's great. DMR Books is tremendous for folks that haven't checked it out. So I've had a few like back and forths with Mr. Ritzlin that
Oh,
runs.
Mr. Ritzlin is awesome. He is one of the nicest people, honestly. Like he he is he's very intelligent, and he's got a lot of creativity, a lot of good skill. So
Yeah, and he's not. A bunch of us are kind of like in the mix. We're like arguing with with people on the internet and stuff. And he keeps it nice and clean and professional. He has our
yeah.
awesome books. Come buy him and everything like that. But I've had Mr. Dave Richland when I've talked to him, probably because he's another Dave. We're well bred people. But what what I, whenever I had a back and forth with him, he's always super nice and professional and their
Yes.
books look great. And I just think they're a great publication. How'd you get hooked up with DMR? And can you tell us a little bit about what you got going on over there?
I don't know. I don't know if it was necromancy or if it was the winds of fate. I don't know. Honestly, it was just I just liked what DMR was doing, and I was like, it's time. And I just I just messaged. I believe I just messaged Mr. Ritzland and was like, how do I somehow get involved? And I don't know. Honestly, it was destined to happen, and I would love to continue doing guest articles for the blog, for the DMR Books blog. Uh, I mean, it would be an honor to work with DMR Books in any way that I can. Really, I mean, they have such great content, and yeah, it would be really cool to be a part of that, and I really hope that it inspires more people too, also to come up and write and publish and get stuff out there. You know,
Yeah.
it it this thing is not. it's not something that only a few people are going to be able to accomplish. If we want to actually change things and actually see real beauty come alive, then we need even more people to come on in and bring some magic to all the empty spaces, to fill the void with creativity.
I love it. I love it. All right, Mr. Matt, we are an hour. That went by real quick. But could you? I dropped a link for your for one of your books in the chat, and I'll have it in the description. But can you let everybody know where they can find you and your work?
Yeah, so I've got a Book Baby author page. I'm everywhere. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. The links to those pages are there on my profile. I'm on Goodreads. Let me see if I can try to figure out this new technology here. So,
Yeah, I think
how
I
do I
found.
drop a link in?
You can go over to the StreamYard on the side and click on private chat
Okay. Oh,
here.
okay. Yeah.
Yep, I found your book, baby. I'll drop that in the chat there for you.
Great. Thank you very much, by the way. And I really appreciate you having me on the show, the podcast, the stream. Very awesome of you.
Absolutely, sir. My pleasure. And we'll have you back. I want to get this thing going. I want to get this thing. Nobody was really, I didn't really advertise for it. So folks didn't really know it was coming on. But I'm going to start pushing it around, let everybody know this is a new show that I'm going to do. And we're going to get, I want to get everybody on the horn and let everybody get to know a lot of the authors because there's some really, really cool people in the pulp scene. And I kind of want to bring them to light and let everybody hear them and hear their theories and everything that they're talking about and doing. So
That's what
we're
it's
gonna,
all about. It's not about having the same voice. It's about real diversity. It's, not being afraid of things that shock us or anything that's offensive. We have to really break boundaries when it comes to art. So we've got to have real diversity, different opinions of all kinds. I believe I've said it before. I don't need people to make art like me or to think like me or anything. I just want to be allowed to be me and to create what I'm doing.
absolutely. All right, Mr. Matt, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you everybody for tuning in. This was the first ever episode of Pulp Talk. I'll bring it up on the Bog next week. I got the Bog coming up Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm not sure what time slot I'm going to do for Pulp Talk, so we'll see what happens with it. I don't know. We'll see. But if you like Pulp Talk and you want to read more about Pulp and you like the Bizarre Archives, make sure you go to Bizarre Archives, thebizarrearchives.com, like you see on the screen, and click on one of the books. But over there on the website, we got a lot of stuff over there. We got genre breakdowns. We got all kinds of stuff over there. What is pulp? And we talk about all kinds of stuff over there, as well as criteria for if you want to submit a story to the Bizarre Archives, weird tales of monsters, magic, and machines. Just go click on submissions tab and bring that up and everything like that. If you bought a copy of the Bizarre Archives, you absolutely love it. Make sure to go to Amazon, Books A Million, or wherever you bought your copy, whatever retailer, and leave us a review. Those reviews help us so, so much. It's really short time for you, but means the world to us. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. You want to follow the Bizarre Archives, get the updates for everything that we're doing. Make sure to go to either Telegram or Twitter and type in at the Bizarre Archives, and you can find us there. And also, we have a Substack, so you can go over to thebizarrearchives.com, right? Thebizarrearchives.substack.com, and check out everything from poetry to movie reviews to commentary, book reviews, all that kind of stuff. So much love, many blessings to each and every one of you guys, the Bizarre Gang. I'll see you guys next time on Pulp Talk.